The CEO fired me over Zoom, but forgot I still had access to the CEO's secret cameras. What I saw destroyed the company. The CEO fired me over Zoom without warning, but they forgot I still had remote access to the CEO's hidden office camera. What I saw that night exposed everything they'd been hiding for years and gave me the leverage to bring the entire company down. They fired me over Zoom, just like that. No meeting in person, no warning. After 5 years of building their firewalls, staying late every weekend, and patching their broken systems at 3 a.m., they let me go in 7 minutes. I was staring at a frozen screen, still hearing the last words echo. "We appreciate your service, Maya, but your position has been terminated effective immediately. No severance. No thank you. Just silence." I sat in my Brooklyn apartment, still wearing the hoodie with the company logo they handed me on my first day. My inbox was already disabled. My ID badge locked out. But the system was still mine. Because what they forgot was this. I built it. Every layer, every hidden backdoor, every encrypted tunnel in that skyscraper. They were my design. They thought I'd revoke my own access. I didn't. I opened my laptop, still logged in through a low-priority admin portal they'd overlooked. The CEO's security feeds were restricted to Level Z clearance, something I wrote code for. I clicked. The cameras loaded slowly, each showing high-end office hallways, conference rooms, and the penthouse level of the tower. For a while, everything was still. Until midnight. The motion detection feed blinked red on one channel, Conference 48B. It wasn't supposed to exist. I'd seen the floor blueprints. That room wasn't there. I watched, holding my breath, as Russell Armin, our CEO, stepped into the frame. He was wearing a black coat, no tie, his usual smug grin missing. 3 figures followed. Men in masks, one carrying a hard case, another with a silver briefcase stamped with an insignia I didn't recognize. No words at first, just gestures, silent tension. Then the audio kicked in, barely patched from a secondary feed. I turned up the volume. "Hyacinth is ready," one of the masked men said. "No ethics fails, no fingerprints. Full compliance. Wiped." Russell nodded. "And the compensation?" "Transferred in real time. But once it leaves your servers, it's your burden." He laughed, low and bitter. "It always is." I felt ice crawl through my veins. Hyacinth. I'd heard whispers, buried references in development logs. A project flagged in red that I was told never to touch. A program that tracked faces, habits, conversations, even keystrokes. I thought it was scrapped months ago. They weren't scrapping it. They were selling it. Illegally, I leaned closer as Russell opened the silver case, revealing a drive I recognized, one of our R&D prototypes. It wasn't supposed to leave the vault room. It was plugged into the boardroom console. Files flashed across the screen. Unfiltered metadata. Names, phone numbers, GPS trails, biometric markers. People. Ordinary people. Watched. Stored. Traded. Then the name Lucia Tran appeared. My stomach dropped. Lucia died 3 months ago. A car accident, they said. She was the lead data scientist on the original Hyacinth testbed. I remembered her panic in the weeks before she died. The emails, the warnings. I thought she was paranoid. I thought she needed rest. I was wrong, and now I knew. I wasn't fired because they didn't need me. I was fired because I was too close. But they made one mistake. They fired me before they erased me. And now, I was watching everything. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I replayed the footage over and over, pausing at every name that flashed across the screen. Every data point, every transfer. Each one told a story of someone being tracked without their knowledge, their faces, Their routines, their vulnerabilities, sold like files in a black market auction. By 4 a.m., I had copied everything to an encrypted drive and unplugged my router. I knew how they worked. If they realized I was watching, they'd kill the feed and trace the IP. But they hadn't. Not yet. I pulled up internal metadata logs from the last 30 days. Hyacinth wasn't a relic. It was active. Updated daily. Tens of thousands of profiles uploaded per week. From smartphones, smartwatches, doorbell cams, even baby monitors. All funneled through Helix Vantage's lifestyle ecosystem. People thought they were syncing their devices. They were syncing their lives to a weapon. I typed one search term: deceased employees, Project Hyacinth. 2 names appeared: Lucia Tran, R&D engineer, Eli Becker, internal audit, both marked as resigned. Both dead. I stared at the screen in silence. Then, out of impulse, I opened an old group chat with Jules Hartley, our former ethics officer. We hadn't spoken in over a year. He disappeared after challenging the board on a classified initiative. HR said he quit. I never bought that. I typed, "Jules, it's Maya. I know about Hyacinth. Are you alive?" I waited. 10 minutes. Nothing. I almost gave up. Then, the 3 dots appeared. "Where are you?" My hands shook. I sent a location. An old bookstore cafe in Chinatown we used to sneak off to during stressful projects. No cameras, no Wi-Fi. He agreed. By noon, I was there first, paranoid, eyes on every passerby. Then I saw him. Hood up, thinner than I remembered, eyes sunken but burning with clarity. He slid into the chair across from me. "You've seen it, haven't you?" he whispered. I nodded. "I have proof." He looked around and leaned in. They called it an ethics bypass, a fail-safe that lets the AI ignore emotional red flags. It scans people's faces, gauges their intent, predicts crimes before they happen. Russell wanted to package it for preemptive enforcement, but we flagged it, multiple times. Lucia said it was learning too fast. It started labeling anyone anxious or depressed as a threat. I felt sick. "You tried to stop it?" He clenched, his jaw. "They erased my access, froze my accounts, and threatened my family. So I vanished. My phone buzzed, blocked number, a text. 'You're digging too deep. Stop before you're next.' I showed Jules. He didn't flinch. 'They're watching your phone. We need to move.' He led me down the back alley, then into a forgotten building with a narrow staircase leading to a hidden basement full of wires, drives, and battery-powered laptops. A safe room. "This is where I've been collecting data," he said. "But we need the root logs. Hyacinth's primary server is still inside the tower. Physical access only. If we can get it, we can end them." Before I could answer, another alert hit my laptop. Someone had just attempted to revoke my credentials. They knew. The game had begun, and I was already inside. I hadn't felt fear like this since my father died. But this was sharper, more precise. It wasn't grief. It was survival. I was being hunted. After Jules led me to his underground hideout, barely lit, wires dangling from the ceiling, servers humming like warning drums, I knew there was no going back. He laid everything out. Names of whistleblowers, a spreadsheet of manipulated accidents, and chilling statistics from Helix Vantage's data. Over 400 flagged subjects had gone silent in the last 18 months. No deaths, no disappearances, just silence. Online traces gone, phones inactive, facial recognition wiped, as if they'd been deleted in real life. Hyacinth isn't just a project, Jules said. It's a test run for digital erasure, behavioral suppression at a mass scale. They're building predictive arrest tools for buyers overseas, dictatorships, private militaries. They sell it with clean marketing. But behind the scenes, they're running simulations on real people. I leaned over the maps he'd taped to. The concrete wall, floor plans, server routes, staff rotation schedules. He'd been preparing for this longer than I'd imagined. Then he showed me the access path. "This is how you get to the heart room," he said. The Hyacinth root servers, physically isolated in a shielded glass vault, 5 stories beneath the building. No external access. The only way in is through the secondary cooling tunnel, a route even most executives don't know about. I stared at the map. It looked impossible. Motion sensors, heat scans, badge checkpoints. But then again, I helped build half of it. "We go tomorrow," I said, while everyone's distracted with the quarterly investor call. Jules hesitated. "You realize they'll kill you if they catch you?" "I'm already dead to them." The next 24 hours were a blur of adrenaline and code. I repurposed old admin credentials to forge temporary IDs, looped camera feeds using one of my own back doors, and wrote a one-time code breaker that would disable door logs for 90 seconds, just enough for one person to pass through unnoticed. Jules printed us fake contractor badges tied to a defunct subcontractor account. I checked and rechecked our gear. Heat-resistant gloves, flash drive clones, dampeners for the server fans to silence our movement. Everything had to go perfectly at Awiati. 6:23 p.m., we stood outside the service entrance of Helix Vantage Tower. I had tied my hair into a bun and wore tinted glasses to mask my face from passive scanners. Jules kept his head down, his hand trembling slightly as he clutched the duffel bag. Inside was everything we'd need to blow this company into pieces. We entered with a crowd of night cleaners and IT vendors. My badge clicked green. The system hadn't caught on yet. Floor by floor, we descended, not by elevator, but through the maintenance stairwell. We skipped checkpoints by pretending to take phone calls. I looped every camera that saw us. We reached the tunnel, hidden behind a Ya'i janitor's supply closet on sublevel 2. The air was damp. A faint hum echoed from below. "Once we're in," Jules whispered, "you have 5 minutes to get the logs. After that, the cooling system will recalibrate and flood the tunnel with high-frequency scans." I nodded. "Set the timer." We crawled into the shaft. Dark, narrow, barely large enough for a grown adult. The metal was cold beneath our hands. Every inch forward, I felt the weight of everything. The people who'd vanished, the ones who trusted the system, the ones like Lucia, who paid for curiosity with their lives. Then I saw it. The heart room. Through the grate ahead, I glimpsed the server, encased in reinforced glass, humming softly, cables glowing like veins in a machine too powerful to be real. We slipped down behind a cooling conduit, and I used the breaker on the side panel. 1 spark, 2, click. The glass door hissed open. The logs were inside, a central node filled with active session keys, operator tags, location trails, user profiles, kill flags. I plugged in the clone drive. 40%, 50, 70. Then the door behind us opened. Footsteps, not guards. Dress shoes, Russell Armin. "I figured it was you," he said. "You left traces." Jules froze. My heart felt like it would explode. Russell stepped into the room casually, no weapon, no fear, just confidence. The kind of confidence that comes from knowing you own the building, the law, the people inside it. "Hyacinth wasn't your project," he said to me. "You were just a code monkey with a badge. You never understood what we were building. You're creating digital genocide." I spat. "You're silencing real people." He smiled. "No, Maya. I'm giving the future order. No mess. No rebellion. Just control." The drive dinged. Download complete. I yanked it out, ducked past the glass wall, and shoved Jules toward the exit tunnel. Russell moved to follow, but I activated the thermal seal, locking the vault behind us. "You can't stop it," he shouted from behind the glass. "Even if you expose us, No one will believe you. You're just a disgruntled ex-employee. I looked him in the eye and whispered, "That's what you said about Lucia." We ran. Back through the shaft. Past the cooling. Vents, up through the stairwells. The system was starting to fight back. Doors weren't unlocking as fast. Cameras flickered in and out. They knew we were here. They just didn't know what we had. We made it out at 8:04 p.m., into a crowded subway platform. I wrapped the drive in foil, shoved it into a decoy phone, and kept moving. I didn't stop until I reached a server cafe 2 boroughs away. There, on a private satellite node Jules had rigged months earlier, we uploaded the data. Every log, every profile, every command. It was time to show the world what Helix Vantage had hidden, and it wasn't over yet. The final blow was still to come. The drive was uploaded. Every file, every secret, every crime documented in Hyacinth's logs was now in the hands of a whistleblower platform called Glass Signal, a decentralized chain that couldn't be taken down by court orders or corporate bribes. We were sitting in a basement-level net cafe in Queens, sweating under flickering fluorescent lights as the status bar blinked green, 100% complete. But I couldn't breathe. Not yet. Jules paced behind me, rubbing his temples. They'll know it was us. Russell will activate cleanup within the hour. PR will start spinning. They'll deny, distract, maybe even discredit the logs. I know, I muttered, pulling out my old encrypted satellite phone. That's why we're not done. I called a single contact, someone I hadn't spoken to since the day my father died. Danica Voss, an ex-investigative journalist turned underground broadcaster. She used to expose dirty tech deals until one too many. Lawsuits forced her off the radar. Now, she ran a rogue stream network that made enemies in high places squirm. I told her we had the story of the decade. She didn't hesitate. Meet me in 40 minutes. I'm sending coordinates. And Maya, if you're lying, you better be ready to disappear. The address she sent was a burned-out printing press in the Bronx. Getting there meant crossing the city, while half the surveillance systems were pinging my face, my movements, my data patterns. But I wasn't going to hide. Not now. Not after what I saw in that vault. Jules and I changed clothes in a thrift shop restroom, dumped all digital devices except for the decoy drive, and bought 2 preloaded Metro cards from a street vendor who didn't ask questions. Every person on the train could have been watching. Every camera could have flagged our presence. Every passing police officer felt like a threat. But we made it. Danica opened the steel door herself. Leather jacket, sharp eyes, a worn-out Canon camera slung over her shoulder. "You better be right about this," she said. "I burned 3. Contact's just getting you here." I showed her the backup drive. "This is Hyacinth. Helix Vantage built it, and they're selling it to governments that don't ask questions." She plugged it into her air-gapped rig, fingers dancing over the keys. The screen filled with profiles, facial scans, predictive threat scores, live monitoring scripts, government IPs, routing addresses in countries under surveillance sanctions, internal memos, Russell's name on over 50 authorization keys. She didn't speak for 5 whole minutes. Then she turned to her team and said, "Start prepping the feed. This goes live in 30. The room exploded into motion. Jules and I stood back, watching as a crew of 6 journalists, editors, and rogue technologists assembled an emergency broadcast. They didn't just want to leak the data. They wanted to present it, show the faces of victims, the code, the emails, the cover-ups. But the deeper they went into the data, the more disturbing it became. Helix Vantage wasn't just spying. It was testing behavioral redirection algorithms, subtle nudges delivered through phone ads, social feeds, and smart home devices that pushed people toward specific decisions. Breaking up with partners, moving to new cities, abandoning careers. Some of the test subjects had ended up in psychiatric care. Others vanished altogether. They weren't just watching lives, they were rewriting them. Danica looked at me, horror behind her steely expression. If this is real, Maya, this isn't just a leak. This is war. Then the power cut. Total darkness. Silence. The hum of machines died. The air went dead. And then came the crash. Glass shattered in the stairwell, a pounding on the rear door, yelling in a language I didn't recognize. One of Danika's guys screamed, "We've been breached!" Jules pulled me behind an old printing press and shoved a secondary flash drive into my hand. The raw logs. If anything happens, get to a relay point. Broadcast it yourself. Gunfire cracked in the hallway. Someone tossed a black smoke device into the server area. Chaos exploded. Danica screamed, "Get her out! Get Maya out!" A hidden passage behind the file cabinets opened. I didn't ask questions. I just ran. Coughing. Eyes burning. I sprinted through the darkness with the drive clenched in my fist. I didn't know if Jules made it out. I didn't know if Danica was alive. I didn't look back. Outside, the sky was gray. Sirens in the distance. A helicopter circled overhead. I ducked into a sewer grate I remembered from a protest years ago. Underground, I moved through the shadows, rerouting myself toward the only place left where I could broadcast without being tracked. An old storm relay station linked to the original citywide emergency alert network. It was primitive. Dusty. Barely functioning, but it was analog, and analog meant untraceable. I rigged the station with a basic video feed, propped up my cracked burner phone, and went live. I told the world everything. I showed them the stolen footage from the CEO's midnight meeting. I showed the profiles. Hundreds of names, faces, threat ratings. I showed the authorization keys with Russell's name. I told them about Lucia, about Eli, about Jules. And I ended with this. They fired me over Zoom. They erased my name. They turned me into a ghost. But I watched them. I recorded them. And now, I'm showing you everything they didn't want you to see. Then I pushed the final command. Distribute to all nodes. It uploaded to every mirrored server on Glass Signal's underground grid. It was done. No one could stop it now. And as I sat there in the dark, heart racing, I knew they would come for me. They would hunt me harder than before. But it didn't matter anymore, because the truth was out. I didn't know if anyone would believe me. Not at first. But they watched. Over 6 million views in the first 12 hours. News stations picked up fragments. Glass Signal's decentralized mirror feeds triggered backup broadcasts across Europe and Southeast Asia. Reddit exploded. Hashtags began to trend. Conquer Project Hyacinth. Helix surveillance scandal. Justice for Lucia. And just like that, Helix vantages. Walls began to crack. But I was still underground, hunted. I moved through abandoned stations and burned out rooftops. I had no name anymore. No address, no phone. But everywhere I looked, the machine was breaking. Employees began leaking memos. Former interns came forward with stories of odd ethics deletions in code. Engineers confirmed they were told not to ask questions. And then came the big blow. A senator from Massachusetts demanded an emergency committee hearing on live national television. Russell Arman vanished. No public statement. No camera appearances. Nothing. That silence told me everything. He wasn't preparing a defense. He was preparing a counterattack. 4 days later, I received a message through an encrypted relay, one I hadn't used since my early years as a white hat tester. If you want him, come to the vineyard. Attached was GPS data for a Helix Vantage-owned retreat in upstate New York. Private, no digital infrastructure, just analog silence. Trap? Probably. But I had to go. I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. So I went. I traveled under cover of a protest march. Slipped out the back in a transport van owned by a friendly logistics firm who'd seen the whistleblower stream and knew the truth mattered more than money. I reached the gates by dawn. fog curling around pine trees, the smell of damp earth thick in the air. Inside the estate, everything was quiet. Then I saw him, Russell, wearing a black turtleneck, sipping wine beside the old stone fountain like it was just another vacation morning. He didn't flinch when I approached. He didn't reach for a weapon. He just smiled. "You made a lot of noise. You made a lot of ghosts." He tilted his head. "They were all going to die forgotten. Maya. All of them. At least now they're part of something bigger. Part of your empire of control? Part of a necessary evolution," he said. "Order over chaos. Prediction over panic. Prevention over freedom. I was building something that would save billions. You think people want freedom? They want comfort. You just handed the world chaos." I stepped closer. "You stole their choices." He stood. "I gave them safety." "You sold it." He looked at me. "So now what? You kill me?" "No," I said, pulling out the tiny lens from my pocket. "You've already done that to yourself." He blinked. The micro camera blinked back. A live stream. Straight to the emergency hearing, already in session. His words, broadcast in real time. Every syllable. Every delusion. Russell's expression fell, but only for a moment. "Clever," he muttered. "But not enough. You think this ends with me? You think exposing a monster kills the entire machine?" "No," I said. "But it's a start." Suddenly, blinding lights, helicopters, tactical boots. Federal agents flooded the compound. They'd been listening for 30 minutes. Every branch of government wanted a piece of this man. They tackled him to the ground. He didn't resist. He just laughed as they dragged him away. I stood alone in the mist, exhausted, burned out, but whole. 3 days later, I testified in front of Congress. My voice cracked. My hands shook. But I told the world the full truth. What I saw, what I lived, and what was done in the name of control. They tried to erase me. They tried to bury me. But I became the one thing they couldn't delete. The scandal toppled Helix Vantage. The board was dissolved. Russell was charged with conspiracy, unlawful surveillance, cybercrime, and obstruction of justice. A dozen global governments launched parallel investigations. And I disappeared from the headlines after 3 weeks, just the way I wanted it. I moved to a quiet town by the ocean, under a different name. I opened a tiny co-working space where students came to learn about ethical tech, transparency, and digital rights. But I never forgot. Every year, on the day they fired me, I light a candle for Lucia Tran and Eli Becker, for Jules, whose body was later found outside Danica's studio, shot twice in the back, and for Danica herself, alive, but in hiding now, her voice still fighting through every signal tower that can carry her rage. They thought they could bury us in data. We turned it into fire, because the truth was never a bug. It was the virus that brought their empire down.